Hi everyone, so we are continuing our Working With series, I think that's what I'm going to call it today, with the Faerytale Oracle by Lucy Cavendish with artwork by Jasmine Beckett Griffith. I kind of felt like this and the Alice in Wonderland Oracle dovetail together nicely, and so doing videos on them in this series together in this way seems to just make a little bit more sense. So the deck comes in this, Blue Angel, typical Blue Angel box. And the guidebook is quite large size for Lucy's most recent decks. She published this in 2016. It seems like a recent deck to me, but it's probably because I use almost all of her decks on the regular. So she talks in the beginning about, working with the fairy tales and ways in which, she has approached things here in choosing the fairy tales. I'm not really going to focus too much on that in this video because this isn't a review. I may have even already done a review of this deck. This is about different ways for us to get more comfortable with reading with the deck, whether that's personally for ourselves or in conjunction with tarot cards or in readings. So I have found this deck personally, especially, I'm just trying to get to the actual card meanings, which is taking me a little bit of time. I found this deck to be especially helpful for information. So this deck tends to be really effective for me when I am looking for either information in as far as maybe why I keep repeating a cycle, or information about a situation or individuals. So this is a debate in the tarot community, and it rightfully so. This is also an ethical consideration. If you feel comfortable asking about other individuals in readings, or allowing querents to ask about other individuals during readings. And this is something that you should sit with yourself and come to an understanding of your ethics in regards to how you want to approach that. Because you are, whether you are imagining it or you are feeling it, that it happens in truth, connecting with another person's energy when you're asking for insight into a situation with them. And that should always be done with approval of the other individual. There's a truck that's about to go by. That happened. So you can look at this as having to ask conscious consent from the individual, or that you can ask an energetic consent from the individual, which means you take a moment to check in with higher self and spirit tribe and ask if it's appropriate to ask for insight in regards to the situation. Again, this is a personal ethic choice, and you should only do what feels right for you, and not do something that feels like it would be violating your own personal belief system in regards to free will. Over the years, my comfort level with this has shifted here and there. And at this point in my journey, about 10 years into professional reading, I do feel okay with looking at other individuals as long as I get an okay from higher guidance when I ask for information. And the way that I ask for information is only in regards to what I need to know about the individual, not usurping their free will, if you will. But that's a completely personal choice. What I do does not need to affect what you do, and vice versa. It has to be completely personal, and it's a personal ethical choice that you make. And it's something that, as a reader, or if you're going to be reading for people other than yourself, even if that's just friends, you do want to be very conscious about what you're doing with that and not be irresponsible. It's very serious. So, blurb on ethics over. I find this deck to be very informative in regards to situations in my life and individuals in my life. especially when it comes to relationships, not just romantic relationships, but relationships in general in my life. So, sorry guys, I'm going to need water for this. Let's talk about the guidebook really quickly before I get into how you may wish to connect with this deck if you're struggling with using this deck in your life, but you don't want to gift this deck to someone else. So, this series is intended for you if you are having difficulty working with specific decks. And this series is me just giving some insight into how I connect with the decks so that you can, give a few of the methods I offer a try and see if that helps before you choose to send the deck down the line to someone else. And for some of us, we really don't want to get rid of a deck, but we're struggling to find connection. So let's look at the guidebook. So we have I always get this back reversed in the camera, guys. So we have Snow White here. There's a keyword of purity. There's a blurb that is a quote from the fairy tale itself, just like with Alice in Wonderland and Lewis Carroll's work. And then Lucy goes in to discuss the kind of heart of the message of the fairy tale, and that can be extensive. And then there's a meaning section at the end. Reversals are not really talked about in this deck, and the meanings can sometimes vary from the description of the fairy tale itself that she offers. So if you feel a conflict in there, you really want to check in with yourself about what feels more appropriate for you to take as your card meaning. I'm also going to encourage you to not necessarily need to read the guidebook every time you draw a card. However, with this deck, I do find it very helpful because I don't really use this deck a lot in readings. I use this more for, again, information and clarity on my own personal journey. And so when I do that, I do like to reference this guidebook for that. So, you don't want to be overly attached to your guidebook, but your guidebook serves a purpose as well, especially when it comes to personal card work. Okay. I'm going to show you some of the images while I talk. So she really has done, in my opinion, Lucy's done a great job kind of running the gamut of fairy tales, doing a little more excavation inside of traditional tales, so we're not just stuck in the basic, Disney version of a fairy tale. No offense to those of you who like Disney. Fairy tales themselves are much more multi-layered than Disney tends to present them. So I think Lucy did a really nice job with that. Your card images are beautiful. And if you're someone who works with myth and archetype, looking at the fairy tales as just that, myth and archetype, can be really helpful in understanding why you keep repeating something in your life, okay? So it is a great deck for, again, personal work. For just outright reads, I do not typically use this deck for outright reads for clients. I've never used this deck for anyone else but myself. I would use the Wisdom of the Shapeshifters deck or Alice in Wonderland Oracle before I would pull this deck out and use this with a client. I just have not felt the call to. It's been much more about personal work, and to be very honest with you, I don't think even once I've drawn a card from this deck and gotten the answer that I wanted or something that felt sweet and warm and fuzzy. It's always been like, no, this is exactly what's going on, and it really sucks. It really freaking sucks. I'm not going to lie to you, and it's always right. So it hasn't been wrong yet, and I've been working with this deck in this way. I purchased it last year. I did not work with it until January of this year. But since January, this deck has not been wrong about anyone. So with that type of intensity and accuracy, I approach it like the Fallen Angels Oracle, or like my beloved Tarot of Vampires, or the Chicoli Tarot. I do not play with this deck. I pull this deck out when I need it, and I let this deck rest when I do not need it. And I do not do that for all my decks, as many of you know. I really don't. But for this one, I do that. And it's funny because you see Jasmine's artwork and you think, oh, it's so cutesy, it's so lowbrow, high art pop. And you don't realize that, Lucy's decks can go very shadow heavy. And in my opinion, this deck goes very shadow heavy. So I use it for personal shadow work, which means questioning of self-beliefs, looking at uncomfortable personal patterns, dealing with unconscious motivations and fear, as well as childhood trauma. And fairy tales lend themselves well for childhood trauma. It's a really fanciful, imaginative way to step into myth and archetype and get clarity about why you keep repeating a certain story from childhood. So I've gone through every image in the deck. I do not normally do that, but you guys got that with this one. Okay, so I don't think that Lucy really pulls a lot of punches with this deck. I'm going to give you an example of how to use this in a reading with tarot cards at the end of this reading, because every video in this series will focus on that. But I want to be very clear that I don't make a habit, and this will be actually the first time I've used this deck for this. And personally for me, outside of this, I do not use this deck with tarot. I only draw one card from this deck at a time. And I only, any journaling work I do is based on that one card. I do not draw another card from another deck with this. So you may find, if you're struggling to connect with this deck, that it's really important to take your time, and also you may want to bring it back to basics and really strip your practice down with this deck. If you're struggling with this deck, if this deck reads like a song for you and you use it in everything, then you know, you don't really need the information in this video. But if you are struggling but you do not want to pass this deck along to the next person yet, then I would say strip it back down to bare basics and draw one card at a time from this deck. Okay, so we're going to talk about specifically how I use this deck for personal work. Sorry guys. Okay, I'm going to move the camera, so if you get a little sick from that, please be prepared, because I do not want to have to edit this video because that takes hours. Okay, so if I'm going to do personal work with this deck, the first thing that I need is a journal and a pen. I do not have my journal right over here, so just showing you a pen. And how I will approach this deck, if I am doing this as a daily draw, will be, what do I need to know for today? And then I'll pull. I get this card a lot. Water and Salt, the Truth card, number 44. So I'll take a look at the image. There's a solemnity to her, and yet a wisdom accessed in her eyes that that allow me to understand that there's more than just this level of physical years in her life that this being is accessing. There's also an understanding of pain and the need for patience in a situation. Now, I say that because this is all about the fairy tale where the father doesn't believe her and she suffers for a long time. So, the quote is, "You caused me to be killed because I told you I loved you as much as salt and water. Now you have seen what it is to live without salt and water." And so then Lucy describes the fairy tale for you. So if you don't know this particular fairy tale, you don't have to get stressed because it's all right in the guidebook. And then she talks about, coming to the truth, understanding pride, and understanding what wisdom is. The message of this card for you is that speaking the truth, the plain truth, is often punished. And you may well be punished for saying what you know to be true, but in time it will have been more than worth it, because the time to placate and please is over. I can't believe I'm reading this upside down, guys. Saying how it is and why it is will be the most healing action you could possibly take at this time. So, this is the description, and then she has the key words: plain honesty, unconcerned, unembellished truth, the basic truth of love, truth and clarity, what we need to survive, love is not to be tested, anger at being unloved is pride, and pride can kill. So, you know, that's not like a lovey-dovey, sweet, romantic, found my one true love type of energy. And that is why this deck packs a powerful punch, and it can feel at times a little difficult to connect with because there isn't necessarily the sweetness and the saccharine quality with which we kind of approach a lot of oracle decks, in my opinion, today. And this is why this deck is very valuable. So if I was doing a daily draw, I would first see what I notice in the image, and I've talked to you guys about this many, many times ad infinitum. Then I would read the guidebook meaning, then I would do some journaling. What do I know I need to be truthful about today? How can I allow myself to be unaffected even if the person doesn't respond well to the truth that I'm going to share with them? Those type of questions. And depending on how much time you have really getting into this, this is an aspect of shadow work. It's questioning your beliefs. It's looking at the unconscious motivations and teasing out where you can step into truth in your life. Okay. So that's one way that you can use this card for this deck for personal work, and that's in a daily draw. Now you can also use this deck for a specific question. Let's say I want information on my significant other, and I've checked in, and it feels okay to ask for information on them. And I say, what do I need to know at this time about my significant other? Be prepared that this deck will be honest with you. Card number 35, the white snake, understanding. All right, so this is another situation where, first of all, I want to take a look at what I feel pulling my intuition. I see the northern lights here, which to me personally, and you always want to come back to the personal when you're working with your intuitive gifts, is something like a miracle. It's so beautiful, and it's such a gift to see it in the sky. And you have this understanding of the magic and interconnectedness of all beings when you see that for me. So we have that feeling of the northern lights. It's also a connection to the north and the element of earth. And a time to lay fallow as well, right? Because it has to be cold in northern New England in order to see them. And then we have the white snake here, and we have our fae being, this connection to elemental beings is represented here as well. So then we can take a look at the card meaning if we feel we need to. So, and again, there's the little splurge of the little blurb from the fairy tale itself. Lucy goes into all of the fairy tale, and then when this card comes to you, you may have recently experienced a time when you felt people seem distant, unemotional, and lacking in warmth. But if you continue to do the right and good thing, you will find there will soon be a breakthrough moment. There will also be a time soon when all the groundwork you have done in a relationship will suddenly become worth it. You're going to be able to change people's lives and help their hearts heal from the frost that can settle around a wound. You are in many ways the healer of the wounded heart, and soon you will see how true this is. Meaning, good turns are rewarded, sacrifice is rewarded, boldness is rewarded. No excuses can be made when we are confronted by the truth. The humblest creatures have so much to offer. All creatures are sentient, love animals, to know, to understand, to have wisdom. So, that can feel like a lot of disparate parts coming together there. When we are asking for information on our significant other and we draw a card like the white snake, we can realize that we are in relationship with someone who may be healing a significant wound from their past and may have needed some time and space to do that. As we have honored that for them and given them that time and space, understanding between both parties has been able to arise, and now there can be a deepening of the connection in honest and loving and truthful communication. And we can go back to the salt and water fairy tale and connect that with this as well, because perhaps it is time to be very truthful with our significant other and allow them to be very truthful and honest with us and see where our journey will take us going forward. But either way, compassion and connection is important in regards to our significant other at this time. So that's a way that we can use this deck to understand certain relationships in our life. Now, we can use that for a significant other. We can also ask, what information do I need to know about my mother? And draw a card. I'm just giving you examples, right? So I'm going to give you an example of a non-romantic partnership. Here we have Rapunzel with liberation. Okay, so what do we see in the card? The black bow always sticks out for me. And we see it repeated throughout the image. The tower itself looks black, and there's this filigree work around her. There's a sense of, again, being trapped. We see the word liberation and a need to set oneself free. But there's also a sense of wherewithal and self-sufficiency with this Rapunzel. And so her need to set herself free doesn't need to be reliant on another individual, even though the fairy tale requires the prince in the way that we've Disney-fied it, right? So we've accessed intuition in regards to the card image, and then we look at the card. If the time has come, if this card has come to you, it is time for you to consider whether you wish to explore the outside world. Oops, I thought I had turned that off. You have also had very little external influence. Only one powerful other has been able to influence you, and for now you need fresh ideas, inputs, and challenges to the way you have been taught to experience and see the world. The world of the tower is already behind you in your thoughts. It is up to you when you will let down your hair and set yourself free. And you can see that there's a whole series of meanings here. I'm not going to read those to you for the sake of relative brevity in this video. We can see from just what we've read, which isn't even the whole card meaning, and what we've seen in this image, that some space and time in regards to our mother is required. An ability to see outside of a traditional or typical way of looking at our situation, our relationship with our mother, and the world is important at this time. So there's a need for time and space. You may take a day or two off from communication with your mom. You know, you may choose to allow her to have her own space and you to have your own space. And there to be fresh ideas, fresh understanding, fresh awarenesses coming in that really come from ourself, not from someone else. It's not time to go seek someone else out for advice or conversation. It's time to explore our own strength and ability and not need to rely so much on someone else telling us what to do or how to do something. So that's how you can use this deck in regards to understanding various relationships in our life. Now, we can apply that to any situation as well, or time, or place, or thing in our life. If we want to understand about, I don't know, the house we've just bought, what's the story with the house we've just bought that we need to know? We can pull one card, do exactly what I just showed you, and develop a deeper layer of understanding in that situation. We can do the same thing with an experience. You know, perhaps we've had an issue with our child at school and we need to have an understanding of what's the underlying theme there, or the root of the issue. Again, this deck is very well suited for that, and so I really encourage you to explore working with this deck if you're struggling with the deck in that way, and see if that feels like you can connect and work with the deck and bring new, fresh energy to your experience with working with her in that way. Okay, I'm going to go grab a tarot deck. I will be right back in 1 second. Okay, so let's talk about how to use this deck with a tarot deck, and I'm going to be using the Da Vinci Enigma Tarot for those of you who are going to ask what deck this is. Let's see, we're asking about our career, and we want some insight into the career right now. 9 of Earth, 4 of Water, and the 2 of Water. Roots, disappointment, and union. I love this deck. And we're going to ask for clarification from our fairy tale oracle. The Snow Queen, loyalty, comes up. Now, I'm going to offer and show you how to do this without needing to access your guidebook for this, okay? But you can feel free, if this is a personal reading for you, to access your guidebook. If you're reading for someone else and you're charging them, you should not need to reference your guidebook during the reading. I just want to offer that for you as advice. So we're asking what we need to know about career. Independence and getting back to our roots is essential right now in regards to building and experiencing abundance with the career. It's not necessarily a time to go and ask, again, to go back to the Mother card, a lot of advice. Instead, this is time to reevaluate the disappointment and the boredom we're experiencing at work, and connect instead with the direction we'd like to go forward in, and with others who can assist us in seeing our vision, which is the 9 of Earth, come to fruition. That's where loyalty and the 2 of Water come in together. And so I would read these two cards specifically together. The independence is in our big picture, to step out of the boredom we're currently experiencing, this sense of frustration, and that no matter what we do, nothing changes. We come back to our big picture and understanding of what it is that we want to experience with the career. And then we make connections with others, and we build a network and step into teamwork with others to see our vision fulfilled. But we don't compromise our vision and the fulfillment of it, even though it will require working with others. So clear communication is important, to go back to the card on relationship we just talked about. Loyalty is a piece of the clear communication. So we want to be very aware that we're not undercutting someone else, or that someone isn't undercutting us in our career right now. But that communication is very clear with others. And teamwork, working together for the big picture, is done with a seamlessness and a sense of trust. And that's where the Snow Queen comes in as our clarification on the Two of Water. We have two water cards and one earth card. I think we can see with the Snow Queen there's definitely the element of water as well as earth represented. Again, water and earth here is showing up a lot, so there's a sense, a need for groundedness, and also communication and emotional connection through this as well. So understanding how we've gotten to where we are, the big picture that will move us forward into creating something new, and working with others in order to do that. It's a time of reevaluation. It's a time to make shifts in the career. So you see how we were able to pull all those pieces together and use, sorry for that guys, and use the Faerytale Oracle as clarification for that. I'm just going to shut that off. Thought that wouldn't go off again, but it did. So we want to take our time working with this deck. I'm going to go back to the deck now, step out of the reading. If you felt like that applied to you in your career, then go ahead and use that as a nice mini reading for you. Really, the impetus of that is just to show you how you can work with the deck and tie the deck into your tarot cards when you're using it as a clarifier. Okay, but if you feel like that applied for you, please feel free to go ahead and use that as a mini read. So you want to take your time with the deck is what I was trying to say. You want to really get to know this one, and her voice is not, it's not that it's not easy to get to know. It's that it's very specific, and it's about getting to the heart of the matter. It's the Three of Swords if it's a tarot card. Like, you can't really run away from this one. And I really want to encourage you when you approach this deck to not do it if you don't feel grounded and centered and stable. Especially if you're going to ask a relationship question, you need to be able to really hear and sense and understand what this deck is showing you about the question that you are asking. And I would encourage you to have a specific question when you approach the deck as well. I do not do multiple draws with this deck. It's a one card thing, even if it's clarification with the tarot deck, as you just saw me do. So if you've been struggling working with the Faerytale Oracle, I hope that this helps. I hope it gives you maybe some different tools or a different access or entry point into working with the deck herself and getting comfortable with working with her. She's an addition to my collection that I will not be getting rid of because she is very pointed and very purposeful in her messages. It's just about me being able to meet her in that purposefulness. So, as always, guys, I am sending you much love and many blessings. See you in the next video.